to the podcast. Thanks for coming on.
Mate, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so I guess introduce yourself and I guess a little bit about who you are, what you do, your journey to get to where you are at the moment.
Sure. Well, I'll give everyone a bit of a synopsis. Hello, everyone. My name's Alex Connor. I guess my title would be Physique and Nutrition Specialist, or at least that's what I've decided on at this point in time. And but moreover, what does that mean? For me, that means helping people establish better relationships with the way that they look and they feel, and obviously in the realms of training and nutrition and lifestyle, as I always say, because that's one of the key things. And for me, health and fitness has always been somewhat a part of my life in some way, shape or form. I've always been an active kid. It's been something that I've been passionate about movement and sport. My early endeavours led me into motor racing, which I was very fortunate to be able to do. Started in the UK, indoor, and then when I was 10 I moved to New Zealand. I had a wonderful opportunity out there, and my mum and dad worked very hard. We're not necessarily very well off, let's say, but my mum and dad worked hard, and my dad specifically gave me that opportunity to do go-karting, which was phenomenal, and that was my first love. And then from there I moved into training. I faced a lot of adversity when I moved to New Zealand, often got picked on a lot because of the way I looked, the way I sounded. I was a small kid, look a bit like the Milky Bar kid, for people who want a visual reference, and fair enough, we've all got picked on. So
did you have the chaps and the pistols?
Mate, that would have been brilliant. I probably would have, because I loved dressing up as like superheroes and other things, so yeah, cowboys not too far wrong. But that led me into training, because I thought, I'll get bigger, and I'll people will be deterred by me, and I'll look better, and girls will like that. And obviously got into training for the wrong reasons, but that led on to a beautiful journey which has built a lot of character along the way, and that led me to Australia, and here where I am today for many chapters, if you will, which I'm sure maybe we'll get into, but that's a bit of a synopsis. And that's kind of why I do what I do, because I'm really passionate about giving back and helping people avoid the mistakes I made. And my ultimate mission is to coach, lead and inspire as many people around the world as possible.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I guess one of my biggest regrets in life is not diving into my fitness journey earlier. I guess I just didn't have when I look back, I didn't have the self-respect and the self-love, didn't see the need for it until I had kids, and then I took a dive into that journey myself. So I understand the importance of your relationship to your own health. And fitness and well-being. So
well, you were telling me about that when we got on a phone call, and it was about like 2 weeks ago now, and you were telling me how like this journey that you're going on now with improving your physique and weight loss, and how that's sort of affected everything that's been going on, and it's like a new chapter for you, if you will, which is great.
Absolutely. Just edging on 60 kilos down. So
that's a big one, man. That's awesome, dude. Congrats, because that must feel and look for you a lot different in many respects.
It's hard sometimes to. There's two sides to that. Sometimes you get caught in this moment where you still feel like you always did. Like you still feel like the big guy, and it still shocks me sometimes. I can walk in and pick up just a large shirt off the rack and it fits. Not having to get a particular brand that goes to 4 or 5 XLs, and it still takes a while for your brain to catch up sometimes, and then other times you get so used to being how you are now.
Absolutely.
You almost can't remember what it was like to be. You get those moments where you're like, oh God, I remember laying on the couch after dinner struggling to fucking breathe.
Wow.
I was So
what's it like when you look in the mirror now? I mean, because this is interesting for me, because I've never been someone who's carried like a lot of weight. I've always been on the other side of it. I've been very small, very skinny, which is kind of the opposite end of the scale. So what's like, speak to that a little bit out of interest, because it's good to get perspective, and for me to kind of understand that. I like to try and put myself in other people's shoes where possible to gain a different perspective.
I think again, it's this mixed between, appreciation for my body and where it's been and what it's done and the journey it's been on. But you still always see some flaws. So, I can look in the mirror and have that mixed emotion about it. I can look and go, oh, wow, look at how far I've come. but at the same time, I can be like, still need a little bit more off there, and they could be a little bit bigger. And I saw a meme recently on Instagram that had as a cartoon, the first tile had a relatively unhealthy looking guy.
Yeah.
And it was like, I look like shit. And then the next tile, he's in the gym. And then the next tile, he's like, looking, got a bit of six pack coming through and stuff. And it's like, yeah, fuck yeah, I look good.
Yeah.
And then the last tile looks exactly the same, looking in the mirror again. He's like, I look like shit.
Yeah.
And I think, you do get kind of addicted to that continuous improvement. Like, I can do better.
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's ironic, isn't it? Because perspective is everything. And there's another similar scenario, or I don't know if it's a spoof or what you would call it, the name escapes me, which is a selection of images, but this is more in comparison to other people. Like the grass is always greener, where you've got, I think, someone on the treadmill and he's looking at the guy next to him thinking, I wish I was jacked, and then that guy's like, looking at the girl or the couple, and he's like, I wish I had a relationship, and then they're looking, at someone else, and he's got a nice sports car, and then they're like, I wish I had that. And it's this whole like monopoly effect of, yes, we always want more. I always use this example with a lot of clients, or when people come and sit down with me for a consultation, where we talk about their goals, and we talk about like adding muscle and losing body fat, and you kind of alluded to this, where who wouldn't want, like if we ask, we're beautiful location right now, we're set outside the Bavaria in the Gold Coast, and there's a few people around in the grass. If we just asked anyone right now, hey, would you like a bit more muscle and to lose a bit of body fat? Even females would probably say, yeah, I wouldn't mind a little bit more lean tissue and lose a bit of body fat. It's the equivalent to saying, hey, would you like a little bit more money? Yeah. Most people are going to be like, yeah, I'll have a little bit more. Like, why not? Like, surely that can't hurt. But that ambiguity sometimes leads to inaction because it's not specific enough for it. It's like, well, let's kind of really define it and get clear on that, and then what are the steps to take?
Absolutely. Something that's just changed the game for me in the last few months. A good mate of mine has an ASN store.
Yes.
And I've been going in every fortnight, and I get scanned.
Yeah.
And there's this specificity about it where I know, exactly, I know where my water's at. I know my intracellular, extracellular water. I know where my, lean mass is at, how much body fat. I can see in numbers where I'm going. And so it doesn't become, like you said, like it's not this general, I'd like to lose a little bit of weight. I can go, all right, I'm at, 21.2% body fat. I want to hit 15. That's my goal.
Yeah.
And, scales, I'm sure you tell people this all the time.
Yeah.
Scales can definitely be your worst enemy.
Yeah.
Because there's been weeks where I've hopped on the scale and I've put on 200 grams. And I go in and get a scan done, and I've actually lost 1.2 kilos of body fat. But when I started getting those scans done, I was quite dehydrated. I was about 5 or 6 litres down in my water. So my water, I've been working really hard, drinking 5 or 6 litres a day, just smashing it, really trying to rehydrate my body.
Yeah.
So I'm adding weight there, but I'm burning fat.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think if anybody is serious about that health and fitness journey, the tools are there to treat it with, some science, with some specificity, like really measure things, and it gives you, like, it takes the guesswork out of it. You know exactly what you're doing. That's it.
If you're not assessing, you're guessing to a degree. But if you look at things in a vacuum, or you're looking at one metric and not at least the multiple or the ones that are the main contributors, then like you said, it can really lead you down the garden path and leave you disheartened as well, amongst other things.
Absolutely. So I guess, what's something in your life that hasn't exactly gone to plan, or a challenge that you faced where you may have, fucked it up a bit at the start, or not quite gotten it right, but it's been an important part of your journey to get to where you are now?
It's a great question. In summary, Australia. Yeah, literally. Because I guess I should elaborate on that a little bit. When I came to Australia, instead of getting myself set up, or at least getting myself set up earlier in terms of aligning myself with the career I wanted, so I was a personal trainer in New Zealand before I left. When I came here, I had jobs lined up. All right, mate, chill out. Bit road rage. But I didn't actually pursue them and get into them. I was scared off by fear. That's why it's a big part of what I call fearless training, the brand. But I thought, oh no, I can't do that. I'm a small fish in a big pond, and I had to pay weekly rent. It was different in New Zealand. I got paid a wage, and that deterred me. So I got into retail, and I just went sort of back to that. And there's nothing wrong with that. And although that was a great learning, and again we'll unpack this a little bit, but the mistake there, if I look back, but is that I didn't where would I be if I'd got straight into it? Yeah. Where would I be if I'd gone all in with my training and just carried that trajectory on now, and maybe just fail hard, fail faster, fail greater, and then get back into it? Yeah. Where, because I was in a new country by myself, there was no quote unquote, air quotes, safety net anymore, because I didn't know a soul. I didn't know anyone. So on the first day, I made a couple of friends, what you can call friends, because you don't know if those people are going to be reliable. How do you know? Acquaintances, exactly. Got my job for gym membership, as you do. Met a lot of people through the gym, as people usually do when you go to a new place. And I just kind of carried on, get down the garden path, and that was comfortable. But it was also uncomfortable, which is the irony. And I just kept jumping from job to job to job to job, retail, playing it safe and trying to accumulate funds and do this online or do the one-on-one on the side. And it was never the priority. So there's one side of that, as I mentioned, where could I have been if I'd just gone straight in and maybe just paid more energy to that. But then again, the opposite side of that coin is, would I be where I am now, and would I be as an effective and a well-rounded coach? Because I did, study throughout that time. I'd had all of this wealth of experience in a multitude of different industries, all based around customer service and people, because everything's people, in my opinion. There is that argument there, well, maybe things happen for a reason, to a degree. So there is that side of it as well. It's a double-edged sword. Yeah,
and I'm down on the Goldie. Spent some time with our mate Rob, who connected us together.
Good old Rob, mate.
Good old Rob.
He's a belter, that fella.
Well, Rob came on the podcast last time I was down.
He's been on both of the podcasts.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, no, love Rob. But we were having a chat yesterday, and he said he'd heard a quote recently, which was, is it one day or day one?
Yeah.
And so many times, I've done it myself. I guess I've kind of, dodged and weaved with my career a little bit as well, so I can completely relate to that. Where different things in your life trigger different priorities, I guess. So I remember when I was young, it was all about music for me. I played in bands and I was a recording studio engineer.
That's cool. I wouldn't mind talking about that. I mean, this is your podcast. I don't want to deter, but that's another passion of my music. But sorry, continue.
Yeah. On. Oh man, it was a lot of fun. But I got engaged quite young, and I don't know. It just got into my head that I needed a job. Needed to, I guess, just earn that income and settle down, because it's a pretty wild life. Just the music scene, and
it is. Oh, it's one hell of a scene.
Oh. Gigging, rehearsals. I was teaching a few days a week at a private school, so up early to drive there.
What instrument did you play?
Guitar.
Nice. Lead?
Guitar.
A rhythm or just a
bit of both, but mainly, I guess, I fronted. I sing as well. So.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Genre, if you had to categorise?
Probably like pop rock, I guess. Things like Dave Matthews Band. John Mayer, that kind of stuff is my jam.
Easy listening, isn't it? Just sort of like tapping your foot,
Yeah, no, that's what
somewhere that you can imagine a band playing outside of here on a Sunday or something.
Yeah. And but yeah, so I've dodged and weaved a little bit with that stuff, and so I'm about to dive, I guess, into some more study myself, and it's one of those things where I look back and go, fuck, if I'd done this 10 years ago,
yes,
where would I be now? The exact same thing. But I guess the challenge and the growth is to recognise that that time's passed, can't do anything about that. What I can do is right now.
Yeah, exactly.
What am I going to do right now? And if we put it off any longer, we're not going to know. We're not going to figure it out. We're not going to see what's on the other side of that thing.
The best time to start is always now, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because we're just serial procrastinators, most of us humans. And we just tell ourselves stories, we invent things to do all the time, and we're really good at it, and it's so easy, and we're all guilty of it.
Yeah.
Obviously both of us are guilty of it, but I mean, like, what is that, what's the elixir? What's the protagonist? What's that thing that changes? And oftentimes, for yourself, for me, for a lot of people that have probably been on your podcast, I imagine, it's actually a negative experience, or I won't say negative because it's not. It's a challenging experience that evokes a very heightened sense of emotion, whether that is aggression or something we associate with negativity. But ultimately, we could again argue that it is positive, because maybe that pain, that fire, instead of the feathers or the pleasure, was the thing we needed to actually go, ooh, I really need to reevaluate, because I know that's what it was for me. It was a place of adversity when I was in comp prep, and it was just very raw, it was very real, it was very granular. There's nothing really there at all. And we spoke about this as well when you were telling me about your journey on the phone after Rob had connected us, and that was just a big awakening for me, because there was no place to hide at that point. There was nothing I could hide. There was nothing where I could bury my head at all, based on my state of mind, state of being. And it was very like, I looked in the mirror, metaphorically and physically, and was like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, literally, I'm like, what are you doing with your life? You're approaching 30. You're still not where you want to be. Why don't you at least just give it 100%? And then if you do fail, then at least you can put that to bed. Like, if you really think like that's what you want to do, and if you're that good, put your money where your mouth is. Like, you need to go all in and not like put your toes in the water and keep getting out. You need to dive the hell in. And then just setting that timeline, setting those goals, and pretty much just doing all the things that I was avoiding. And then, here I am, and it's like, oh, you didn't, now we've got better problems, as Mark Manson says in The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, which I love, by the way. So I think that is a really good message of, it's like, it's not about just being reckless, but it's about, you've only got so many fucks to give, and focusing on the things that you need. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it's like, get out there, get it done, have a go. If not, move on to the next thing. Otherwise, you'll never know. And it's like you said before, day one or one day. Someday is fucking, that'll take your dreams to the grave. And
absolutely.
And most people do. Something I will add on. Sorry, mate, I go off on tangents, mate.
I love tangents.
Please, literally, stop me if you want to jump in, because this is your podcast. But I'm just so used to being the host. So, but I don't shut up anyway. So, I'm sure the listeners are like, yeah, we figured
you're here to talk. So.
Fucking talk I can. So, I was going to say, I asked her, so a lot of my friends are nurses, and a lot of clients are nurses, and I remember there was one particular nurse, I always sort of ask this particular question. I'm like, who work in the ward, I forget the name, it's where people are passing away.
Like palliative care.
Yeah, that's a tough job, man.
Oh, yeah.
It's a very mentally tough job. That is you've got to be a specific kind of person to be doing that and sustain mental health. But anyway, so I asked, this is when I was working at Nike back in the day, and I asked a particular nurse, but I never forget what this nurse said. I don't know why, anyway. And I said, hey, look, out of interest, I was talking about what you do and this and the other, and I said, what are the biggest regrets from people on their deathbed? Now, the thing that was very consistent with all of the people who work in this area or this field was a regret of, I took life too seriously and I didn't laugh more. So look, like, there it is. It's literally happiness. It's laughter. It's like enjoying the fuck out of every day. Like right now, it's like, what, people are all stressed. There's people sitting here and they've probably got worries, and it's like, and we do, and I'm not saying not to worry, but it's like, have a bit more of a laugh. Don't take it so seriously, because ultimately, here's a bit of a perspective for you. We're all going to end up in the dirt. Like, literally. So if you're ever worried, just think about that, which sounds like a bit of a pessimistic thought, but it really gives perspective. I actually used to, when I was in Australia struggling, I used to ring up my dad, and he'd say to me, I'd be going off on tangents and I'd be upset, and he's like, are you dying? I was like, what? He's like, shut up and answer the question, are you dying? I'm like, what? What's that got to do with anything? He's like, are you dying? I'm like, no. He's like, what are you worried about? He's like, and even if you were, it doesn't help. And I was like, wow. And it's just this massive perspective change. But sometimes we need to ask ourselves these questions. But going back to the nurse's story, so there's that, right? People not enjoying it or not laughing enough. And I thought, well, let's take that hindsight and let's use it, because there's multiple people who are dying, many thousands of people all the time. And if that's one of their biggest regrets, maybe there's some truth in that, because it seems to be damn consistent. And then I said to her, okay, so what's the thing that you've taken from that? Because you're on the front line there doing that, like that must affect you in some way. And she said, yes. And I said, well, what action have you taken from it? And she said to me, well, for me, it's about not putting the things on hold I want to do that cause happiness and laughter and experience, i.e. travel and holidays. And so she says, I, every year, always, no matter what, book a big holiday, and I just keep checking it off my list. No matter what, she goes, I just put money aside and I do it. And I'm like, yeah, you know what, because it's so easy not to do. And I know in these current times, it's, you know, it's
travel.
It's a bit, it's more than ever. But, I mean, we can still do something, right? Like, we could still... You know, even as short as going up to the Sunshine Coast, like for us, or going somewhere local, or exploring wherever you can. And if you can't, even, you know, making those plans that when you do open up, let this be the lesson that's taught you how much you miss travel and how much you took it for granted. It's like people who like complained about going to the gym and now they can't go, and I'm like, you will never complain about being like not doing leg day again, or you know what I mean? So it's like you don't miss it till it's taken away.
Absolutely.
Just a quick one, guys, before we carry on with the podcast. For any of you who are interested in taking your health and physique to the next level, and you want to remove the guesswork, you're not quite getting the progress that you want, you're not seeing what you want to see in the mirror, and you're not feeling like you're really moving in the right direction, then click the link in the bio below, the apply button, where you can contact me. We can organize a free consultation, no obligation, and discover whether it's a good fit as coach and client. All right, back to it.
Absolutely.
But anyway, that was a bit of a rant.
but it's true. It's true. And I guess touching on that, you know, just doing it, just getting it started thing. Another conversation I was having the other day was we often want to wait until everything lines up, right?
Oh, the perfect time, waiting for the perfect moment, which never exists.
And we're like, you know, especially with character, I think character stuff. So to go, I'd love to be more generous. But I'm struggling to get by at the moment. But it's like, okay, if you want to be generous, just start being generous. You know, maybe it's not money, maybe it's time, maybe it's, you know, in other ways, or maybe it's just giving that a little bit. But if you want to actually start to be something, just start to do it. You know, if you want to learn to play the guitar, don't go, oh, I'm not, you know, I'm no good, I won't, you know. But you're not going to be good unless you pick it up.
Slash wasn't when he first picked it up.
None of us
it was shit. No one ever just was like, ow, 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 you know, like no one got on.
Like, you know, I was a 12-year-old kid sitting in a bedroom, you know,
you would
banging away, and
sounds well.
On the guitar.
Hang on a minute.
On the guitar.
Hang on a minute. Well, you just got a...
What happened in my bedroom stays in my bedroom.
That just went from PG to X-rated. Just flip that mic around. It's going. You're right. There you go. That's it. There you go.
And
the mic was getting excited.
Oh, it
was. It was like, I'm out of here.
A little bit. It's excited. There's a 12-year-old boy in his bedroom. But yeah, I think there's a real beauty in just starting. Just starting, you know, like it takes that first step, that first, you know, that first thing. You know, if you want to, you know, I get, you know, one of my personal struggles for me, just like character-wise, I'm a very reactive person.
Yes. Yeah, we were just talking about this before we turned on the mics.
And there's, you know, I'm a very, I like to think I'm quite a self-aware person. I don't always have the tools though to sort shit out, but I'm aware that the issue's there, and so for me, I recognise I'm one thing.
Yeah.
I want to be another thing. So I can't just go in one day. You know, if I have less stress, if I have less this, if I have less that, if this person doesn't do that, then I'll be less reactive.
Yeah.
You've got to take responsibility for that shit.
Exactly.
And go, all right, what can I do? What can I do today? What can I learn? What can I read? What can I study? What advice can I get? What can I put into practice to move myself from here to there? And man, I think that's a key. You know, like your journey doing the retail stuff and having that dream to get back into personal training, and there would have been a step, there would have been a moment where you've gone, nah, I'm here, I want to be there, got to take that first step.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's humbling, isn't it?
Yeah. And I guess there was a quote that I read recently. It was along the lines of, it won't be word for word, but along the lines of, if you want to be the master of something, you have to first learn how to be the fool.
That's a good one. I like that.
And
it's true in many respects.
Yeah, you're never going to start something at the top. You're never going to start something the most skilled, the best at anything.
No.
You have to be prepared to fail at the start. You have to be prepared to look like an idiot.
Yeah, literally.
You have to be prepared. Like, come back to the music thing. If you want to get up and perform in front of people, the first time's going to be nerve-wracking as fuck.
Oh, yeah.
You're probably going to forget some words, you're going to misplay a chord, you're going to get halfway through a song and go, oh, that top E string's just not quite in tune. Like, there's going to be something.
Yes, absolutely.
But you're not going to get up there and you're not going to be John Mayer on your first performance.
No.
And John Mayer wasn't John Mayer on his first performance.
I know.
I'm sure he wasn't.
And I think sometimes it's like listening to these conversations with people who've done it and been there. Gives you that perspective, because like, and they tell you these stories sometimes, these people that you look up to and idolize, and you're like, oh wow, you grandly fucked up back in the day. I'm actually listening to something at the minute called Rock on Tours. Rock on Tours. It's like entrepreneurs, rock entrepreneurs, and they interview all of like the top artists in the world, but more in the rock scene. And I'm just listening to Brian Johnson from AC/DC. And man, it's amazing. Like, the more you listen to people that have achieved success or got to a level in some endeavor or passion or field, and you realize the journey, it's littered with failures, fuck-ups, but you know what? Great fucking stories. And you realize that there is no direct, like, one path to the top, if that's what you want to call it, or success, because that's what makes it. It's like your journey will be unique. Don't try and base it off. And I think a lot of people, something I did, I'd watch films or I'd listen to actors and artists. I'm like, oh, so yeah, maybe that's my path too. Or like, I have to do that. And I'd sort of like romanticize and base it off that. Where I'm like, that really leads you down the garden path.
Yeah.
The best thing to do is create your own path, because that's what's going to make you unique. And one day, maybe someone will be listening to your story, regardless of whether it's your grandson, your granddaughter, or millions of people, about, wow, you know what? Shit, I can go my own way. In the words of Fleetwood Mac. You can go your own way. All right, just break out into a musical. But that's what lyrics are, stories in many ways, especially, in the rock genre and, maybe more of the older school music. I know it is in every lyrical sense, but that's my bias there, I just love listening. Or if you ever read lyrics, sometimes like a book, it's fascinating what you can get out of them. The 80s just said it so right. I don't know what it was, but they just nailed it. I'm like, how do you know? You know.
And I've been through a bit of a personal journey lately, and maybe it comes from being that creative. Like I grew up in church, in a religious environment, and I guess one of the positives of that was the exposure to music, the exposure to the arts, the opportunity to perform, the opportunity to write music and do all this stuff, and so I guess that creativity is something that's deep rooted in who I am, and I find it very healing and very positive for me to be able to put how I'm feeling down. And it's blown my mind at how uncomfortable, I guess when it's personal, how uncomfortable other people's pain makes them. And I've written a bit of poetry and written a few things over the past 6 months, and gotten a bit of almost negative feedback from people I know, because I'm opening up my my pages and going, fuck, here's where I'm at, right? But I said to someone, every single love song, every single song about heartbreak, that country song that you love, that's someone's experience.
Yeah. That's
somebody else's heartbreak that you're loving. It connects so deeply with you, but because you know me personally, it's almost offensive. Like it was just a crazy realization to have and go, wow, like, it's
an interesting point.
On one hand, we get so uncomfortable with people's pain and people's, struggles, but that's what the arts are. It's 90% people's struggles.
Yeah.
On paper.
I mean, that's how you curate the lyrics, the experience, because you can only draw from what you've been through. What you've been through is your journey, and that's all you can write. It's like a conception of something. There's an argument that there's never an original thought, because there can't be, because all of our thoughts have come from our experiences, which have been done, said and seen before in some way, shape or form. Yet there are new ideas coming all the time. So why is that? Well, I always say there's only so many strings on a guitar, and now there's about 8 on some of the bigger guitars. You can get 12 strings, but ultimately there's only so many chords, right? Yet people are still making new songs. Why? Well, it's the nuance. It's not what you do, it's how you do it, right?
Absolutely.
And there's just an infinite amount of combinations that you can use to even do the same thing, which comes at a completely different result, a different sound, a different experience, a different colour.
And I think that's the beauty in creating anything, is that the truth to that there's nothing new thing is that there isn't. You look at food. I went to so I've been plant-based with my diet for the last couple of years, but before that, I definitely wasn't. And I remember going to like a fancy degustation dinner, and the dessert was a rosé, almost like a crushed ice rosé thing.
That's a deconstructed dessert, sir.
with a chilled scallop.
Whoa. That wasn't Aston's place, was it?
No.
White tattoo, by the way. Just saw that.
Oh, thank you.
Saw the lion in there. So anything lion, I'm just on it. But
I'm a Leo.
there you go.
Yeah.
I am now, apparently, because they made up a new star sign.
Oh yeah.
So that I was
Nudged
sort
a few.
of borderline. Well, I was borderline Virgo, Leo, and now I'm just like in my rightful place.
Nice.
In my opinion.
Yeah.
Because the lion. But
you know where you should be.
There you go. But you were saying about this deconstructed dessert, or ice wall, that it was a rosé with ice, and it had a what scallop on the top?
A chill, like
a cold scallop.
Yeah.
And we're talking the seafood scallop.
The seafood scallop. Yeah. And that was a completely unique. Now, rosé is, all those elements exist, but to put it together in a unique way, and I think that's what I see in creativity now, and in everything. I mean, in the personal development space, there's a lot of people saying similar things, but like you said, the nuance, the way somebody gets, all these experiences that they've had, ties all that together. It may have a central message similar to somebody else and somebody else and somebody else, but how unique those experiences have been really shapes the outcome of the message.
People connect with different voices and different looks and different archetypes. A good example of that is what we're doing right now. Because there's probably other podcasts which do what we do to a degree. And I know there's a lot in my space, but why do people tune into my podcast? Well, maybe it's the way I say it, I always would say to a guest, you've been on fucking thousands of podcasts, you're such a big guest, why are they going to listen to my podcast? Well, I'm going to do it like this. I'm not going to reinvent the wheel, but I'm going to find an angle. I'm going to find a way, and maybe sometimes the way is just the uniqueness. For example, I always think about a voiceover or an audiobook, and people can relate to this listening. When there's just certain voices you just can't listen to. And for me, I trial an audiobook and I'm like, I'm sorry to this narrator, but your voice, I am tuning out. And then some people are just, wow, you're hanging off every single word. It's just eloquent. I think a really good example of that is Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Oh yeah.
He's someone who we've been listening to lately, and I know he's very popular in the sphere, and he's a great communicator of science. But the reason why, or a large part of the reason why, in my opinion, is his accent. He sounds like the old Darth Vader, man. Like, he's like got this deep voice like this, and he talks all, and he's like, and he's got the laugh going on. You're just like, whoa, and he's like, well, Joe, the thing is, and he's talking like, when he's on Joe Rogan, and you're just like, fuck, and he's just very listenable. And I think a lot of people subconsciously don't realize that. Some people may do, may not, think, oh, he's just interesting. He explains science in such a way, and he does. But we forget the tone, the enunciation, the sound, the depth,
Yeah.
the reverberation, the timbre, all of that sound element stuff.
Absolutely.
It's a big thing, man.
Well, I mean, I've spent the last few years working in community services.
Yeah.
And I work with at-risk kids and youth. And doing, I guess the therapeutic approaches that we use and doing a lot of study and research into that, communication in crisis and crisis management is something that I've studied a fair bit. And it's probably different in normal conversation, but in a crisis, only 7% of the meaning is conveyed through the actual words you speak.
Yes.
Everything else is body language, tone of voice, eye contact,
Yeah,
all those
yeah.
non-verbal cues.
80% of communication is non-verbal.
Yeah.
Hence why watching a podcast, you get so much more from listening to it as well. Sometimes, or depending on what you're tuned into, but usually, for a lot of, it gives you a whole new dimension. Like you can listen to a podcast and you can watch the same podcast and go, fuck, I just got so much more out of that.
Yeah.
I put a face to the name, and you can read the person. You go, oh, I don't know, maybe they're a bit disingenuous, or maybe they're a bit, it's interesting.
Absolutely. So your journey came here. I guess you didn't jump straight into what you felt called to do. So what was that? Was there a catalyst moment for you? And what was that first step that you took to go, okay, I'm here, need to get there. What's the first thing you did?
The catalyst moment was the comp prep, which I alluded to before. That have to be it. But that was after many years. But that really was the last, straw.
Yeah. So bodybuilding comp?
Broke the camel's back, yeah. But more to the point of what's the first action step that I did. I started to really take it seriously. It was the mindset. It was the going from pre-contemplation contemplation into going, right, now it's action. So I was like, right, what do I need to do? With my knowledge and resources, what do I need to do?
Yeah.
And if anything, I had an abundance of resources, but I just needed to take action. So I started to listen to a couple of my mentors or people that were close to me, and I started to ask them for advice, on what I could do, where I should go, what I should be setting up, money in the bank, all of this. And there was a particular podcast called the PT Performance Podcast. Which was hosted by Chris Mooney, who now is the area manager or the main manager for EMF, ironically. And he was one of my first mentors when I got into this space. And joined on that podcast was Richo and Nathan, who are good friends of mine now, also trainers. They've been in the industry for years. And they went through all of the basics. And every episode they covered off from start to finish. This is what you need to do to set up. Here's the biggest mistakes. So I thought, right, well, this is not a bad starting point, because at that point, just getting started was the point, right? So I would listen to the podcast and I would make notes. And I go, right, as soon as I finish my comp prep, because I get my brain cells back, one of the things that I'm not good at doing is I try to spread myself too thin. I try to do everything. I'm like, right, you need to cut that in the bud. You need to be a bit more pragmatic. So it's like, you've committed to this comp prep, you put everything into it. Let's do that. Let's do the comp prep first. So I thought, right, I'm going to finish that. I'm going to give that everything. I owe it to myself. I put blood, sweat, and tears into that for years. And then this is the next project. So I went, right. So I started curating it. I wanted to start a podcast. I'm like, right. So I just started writing it down in no special way, shape, or form. I'm just like, right, what do I need to do? So I would make these key points, like, this is what I need to do, this is who I'm going to speak to, this is what I need to research, these are the numbers I need to, whatever it was, right? Metrics, numbers, action plans, whatever. I just notes. And I would sort of break that down and refine it. And I kept doing that, and I kept doing that through the PT Performance Podcast, and I thought, I need some more accountability. So I reached out to Chris and I said, hey, can I come and have a chat to you? Possible help and support. I want to get, this is kind of a little bit of a synopsis. This is what I'm going to do. Anyway, I met him he was managing my fitness club at the time in Broadbeach, and I came in. And he was like, oh shit, and I'd brought all these notes on his podcast, every episode, and I'd noted it down. He's like, fuck, hang on. This guy's a stalker. Yeah, he's like, this guy's either fucking Rain Man or he's serious, right? So he was a bit impressed and shocked at the same time. And I said, I want some skin in the game, to use his words. Can you hold me accountable? And can you guide me through? And he was happy to do it at that point. He's has his own company, 51 Fit, certifying personal trainers. We shared the same passion of we wanted to improve the industry standard. So, it was just time at that point, trading time for time, and he would just check in with me. And it was just someone there, you know, to kind of guide me. And if anything, I kind of facilitated it, you know. I was like, oh, you know, I'm just going to message you and tell you when I've done stuff. So I was almost like making my own, you know, accountability buddy, if you will.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I shortlisted the gyms, I decided on EMF, you know, I knew I'd broken down the rent, and so one of my friends, Sandy, was also working here, and she gave me a lot of great information as well, and, you know, and I would just basically just executed every single thing that I said I was going to do. Now, fortunately for me, I did that, and then I did it tenfold.
Yeah.
And to the point where my goal was to be, you know, the #1 trainer I wanted to dominate that space within 12 months. Now, the reason I knew I could do that is because of like, I wasn't new to the industry, but I was just getting back in full time. So I'm like, I can curate all my knowledge, I believe in myself, but I still had that self-doubt, and I'm gonna give it 12 months hard, and if I can't make it, there you go. But I don't want mediocrity.
Yeah.
So I was just, you know, completely cutthroat with everything I did professionally. I went in, I did the fucking hours, you know, I knew all the what I needed to do every day to a degree. You know, I refined it over time. It wasn't perfect. I got in front of people, I did as many complimentary sessions. There's all these other nuanced things which I won't go into specifically for trainers, but you know, I had a plan and I executed it every single day, and it paid off and it paid dividends. And that led me to where I am now, to the point where, you know, I'm now able to mentor other trainers, and, you know, years down the track, and give them that same sort of like game plan of, hey, we're gonna make it yours, but here's the non-negotiables, here's the principles, and if you do this, you will be successful, unless, you know, you just don't have the personality for it. And most people before that point, you can pretty much ascertain whether it's in them or not, you know what I mean? And the level isn't massive, because it's not about being someone like who's really outspoken like me. You can still be the quieter character, but ultimately you need to have the passion for it. It's not just about, a lot of people think, oh, you know, I like training, I'll train other people. It's like, no. There's so much more than that, and you're going to get a rude awakening if you think you're going to be a trainer and you don't understand people and you can't communicate, because you're not going to get people who are bikini pros paying you loads of money, who don't know things. Like, you're going to get people who are part of, you know, real people. I don't want to say general pop, because I really don't like that, because no one's general. But you're going to get real life people. You're going to get people with injuries. You're going to get people who are lacking motivation, who don't know how to track calories, and you need to teach them certain things, and you need to break that down and meet people where they're at. And that is one of the keys in the art of coaching. I mean, a successful coach is being able to take a complex concept and the fundamentals and apply it and communicate it to somebody's lifestyle, make it bespoke to them, and then over time help them, you know, achieve a sustainable and flexible and enjoyable relationship with that, so they can continue on. It's give a man a fish, teach a man a fish. To use a proverb, if you will. In that respect. So that was it. It was ultimately, you know, the takeaway from that, I think, is, you know, creating an action plan. I just written it down, and there's no magic here, guys. You don't have to write it down. It's whatever it is to you. But it was like there was creating accountability and action. And every day, I think I will say this last thing. I just had 3 tasks. I was like, you know what? Keep it simple. So I had A, B, and C. If I got A done, it was a win. If I got B done, it was better. And if I got C done, it was best. It was good, better, best. But it was non-negotiable, at least one. But because people bite it. They go from 0 to, they go, I'm not doing anything and I want to do everything. And they get disheartened. It's this whole black and white approach, which we constantly have to get people away. Good, bad, clean, dirty, bulking. But it's like, no, there's the grey, there's color. We don't live in black and white. So that would, be the last adjunct. I just want to put across there to kind of really like summarize your question.
Absolutely. And I guess one key thing I took from that is that accountability. Because I guess one thing that I've learned is that there's certain things that keep us on track, like bumpers, those. And you know, it's so easy to veer out of our lane.
Yes.
And so I guess accountability for you in that sense was that thing that just kept you in that lane, focused, moving in the right direction.
It was what we talked about at the start of the podcast, or towards the start, about like tracking metrics too. Like, I was accountable not only for, you know, other people that I'd recruited to hold me accountable, whether it was, you know, Chris in this respect, or even my friends, my family, you know, people I'd shared this with and said, I want you to hold me accountable, like, and I've told you now, so I don't want to look a fool to a degree. That could, you know, I'm like, hey, I give you permission to tell me, hey, pull your head in, you know, this is what you really want, this is why. And having those daily actionable tasks that I could look at the end of the day, objectively, take the emotion out of it and go, did you achieve that? Yes or no? And if not, why? And what do you need to do tomorrow? And so and now I'm just remembering it as we're talking, a key part of that, guys, was journaling.
Yeah,
and I've talked a lot about this on my podcast in solo episodes and other sort of conversations, and I turn my nose up at it for years, and a lot of people do, but again, people miss the point. It's like meditation. People miss the point. It's not sitting on a rock and, meditation is a state of mind that you can get in, and that can be anything to any person. Yeah. And same with journaling, but ultimately what it's doing, journaling is just creating a habit and a routine, whether that's, for me, identifying gratitude at the start of the day, but starting with, you've got morning habits and evening habits, and then you review it. Now, you start off with a template, and I got gifted this journal actually in comp prep, and that's what I decided to do. So I read it, and then that's what kept me going.
Okay. Yeah.
So it was like, it's funny how these habits, and there's a lot of great books, The Power of Habit and all of this sort of stuff, how we actually don't realize we go with the current, but having the power to identify and change habits gives you the ability to swim against the current. Because most people are going with the flow in life. They're on their phone, they don't realize it, they're pissing away time, but they're actually unawares, and that's the really sad thing. And when you have the power to go no, and you remove it, like I don't own a TV, I don't watch TV, I've unsubscribed from all Netflix, everything at the minute, because I'm still not, right now, like in my life, I'm like, I want to read more books and I'm not getting through enough. But the one protagonist is I'm just like sitting at the end of the day, I have my food, I like to watch an episode of Netflix or something that I like, and I'm like, you know what, I don't need to do that anymore. It's not adding value anymore. There's a time and a place for that. So if I remove it for now to build the habit, like when I sold my PlayStation and everything, I'm like, the book's there. So I'll read the book more. And then once I fix that habit, then maybe later on if I want to have it, I'll have that. But it's like, what's important? And there's a great quote that goes something like, the difference between where you are now and in X amount of years, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, a decade, is the people you meet, the conversations you have, and the books you read. And it's very, very accurate. And because the more I've read, the more people I've met and listened to and talked to, the greater experience I've obtained, and the more I've been able to fast forward my life, even with like breathing. It sounds silly, man. Like we think we take for granted. Like I started learning to breathe about properly a year ago because I was a mouth breather. And it was by James Nestor. It's called Breath or Breathe. And phenomenal. And now my breathing, my oxygen, my sleep, my energy, like everything is enhanced. And you think, well, you're a fit guy. It's like, why is that? But no, I was a mouth breather. And for people who don't know, maybe read the book and you'll get it. But there's that, and then there's other things. Oh, right, the happiness, and you're just adding and you're upgrading, and your life is so much more rich. And it's not always about striving for more, but it's about striving for improvement and a fulfilling life. And the answers, they're written down, but they're not all in one document. You've kind of got to seek it out. There's no right or wrong, but you've got to go on that journey.
And
Sorry, man, I went off on a massive one.
No, it's great.
I just like fucking soliloquies, mate.
No.
In the end, there was.
No, I love it, and I really resonate with it. So like we discussed on the phone. I'm prepping for a comp at the moment. Not quite the level that you would have been at, but I'm doing the transformation category.
But it's your journey.
It is. It's unique. And one thing. Coming into the last couple of months, the dreaded cardio. And man, I'm doing 20,000 steps a day at the moment. And
stop there, man.
and so the beautiful thing about it, and the thing, the unexpected little golden lining in that, is I'm not watching Netflix or Stan or any of this stuff.
You're on the podcast, mate. Aren't you?
I'm up at 5.
and the music, probably.
Oh, no, audio books. I'm up at 5 every morning. I'm getting, 7-8 Ks done then. And I'm listening. I've got, an hour and a half listening to podcasts, books, like filling my head with knowledge. And then, another hour or so at night doing the same. I haven't watched, other than the odd movie with a friend. I haven't watched Netflix or TV or anything in months, and it's amazing.
I tell you what, it's a belter. I love that. It's a great time for yourself in the morning. It's one of my favourite routines. I've recently, I'd say, I use the word upgrade. Upgraded it because I've come to a point where I can't work at the gym for the most part anymore because there's too many distractions, and I've earned the right that I can work away from the gym, which is a beautiful achievement to have, where I can train my clients when I want to train them, and there's that sort of freedom aspect that I'm achieving. So it's more quality. And something I love to do is I love to get out in the morning, get away from it. I like to be out in nature. I like to listen to a podcast or some music. And then I can start getting back to my clients after I've served myself and done my morning routines. But I'm out and about and I'm walking at the same time. And I find that generates thought.
Yeah.
And because we have this, use of technology, which is great, we can still do that. But I'm not completely in front of my laptop, sat down stationary, getting distracted by other emails that could be pinging off or other distractions. It's like, that's just my time to do those things.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how that can set up the day. Like, you see a lot of people on the phone, they pace. We probably can all relate to this. Sometimes you need to get up and talk. It's weird, but sitting down, you're like, you can't generate that thought. There's an interlink between those two. But like you said, it's just a great way to start your day, and you're reinvesting from the get-go, and you really crave it after a while. You probably do too. Like, if you don't get to do it, you're like, you look forward to that time, or getting back to that audio book or wherever it was, and you're tuning in, and it just works. The body is in some sort of synchronicity. With the walking, the being in nature, the breathing, the listening. You're just vibing. It's good.
Absolutely. And and the breathwork thing as well. I guess they're all things that I've been exploring lately. But I think that real
the breathwork thing is absolutely phenomenal in many respects.
Did my first breathwork and ice bath.
The ice, but mate, the cold. I've been doing cold showers for years now,
Yeah.
and then the cold pools. But how good are they? The ice bath is another level. You really got to focus, don't you? It's hard to think
4
about
minutes.
Woo.
And it is.
It's a long 4 minutes, isn't it?
It is, and that
especially for your balls.
Oh yeah.
No, but it's true though, man. Like he's like, woo. It's hard to focus on anything else. Sorry, mate.
It is, and there's something about forcing yourself to have that focus, and to acknowledge a discomfort, because I'm terrible, and I've realised this about myself, is that I think as humans we naturally try and avoid discomfort.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But there's no growth in that.
No.
At all. And even emotionally, I've always been somebody that wants to rectify something straight away.
Yeah.
If I've had a falling out or an argument with somebody, I'm like, fuck it, let's just fix it.
Yeah.
Let's just. And I've realised it's because I don't want to feel that discomfort.
Yeah.
I don't want to feel that tension between me and that person. I don't want to, dwell on that negativity. And what I've done is circumvented myself from probably learning some shit that I need to learn by actually sitting in that discomfort and processing it and assessing it, and that discomfort's there for a reason.
Oh yeah.
The ice bath was just an amazing exercise to do that, to go, this really fucking sucks. Like, it's not pleasant at all. But I'm going to sit there, I'm going to embrace it, I'm going to, focus my way through it. Yeah, it was a great experience.
Yeah, it's very sobering, isn't it? In many respects. But I do like the cold therapy, and reading Wim Hof's book, and I encourage people to read, because people on the outset they misjudge it. It's kind of like the the subtle art of giving a fuck, or a lot of books. Like, you read the title and you can't, and then it is a little bit like, it's designed to elicit an emotion. But sometimes people go, oh, that's it, and it's like, well, no, there's nuance and context to that, and it's not just about, like, if you, as you read the Wim Hof, and it's not just about sitting in cold. It's not just about exposing yourself to cold. There's actually a reason behind it, and like you said, oftentimes it's, more about the mindfulness and the breathing. And then there's a process to do that. Yeah. It's not just about going and sitting in a bucket of ice, because for most people it's going to be too much straight away. Which is where sometimes people go wrong.
Yeah, and that link, I think something that really fascinates me is the link between these kind of ancient practices and things that people have done for thousands of years, and what we're learning now about science, and things about practices that stimulate the vagus nerve and calm your somatic nervous system and all that kind of stuff, and we're going back and going, okay, these practices like meditation and mindfulness and breathing and all this stuff, there's actually science behind it.
Well, that's the irony, isn't it? It's almost like we're going back to go forward. It's another example is almost the premise that fashion like recently in Australia, I've noticed, well, recently, probably last year, people are going back to the old style jeans, and they're almost like wearing like older, baggier, shitter clothes.
My skinny jeans are out of fashion.
Yeah.
I just can't bring myself to.
Yeah. No, I mean, I've always been out of fashion, mate. So I always wear skin tight jeans like an 80s rock star. But you know, like that's the thing, be unique. But fashion comes in a trend.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It sort of, you see it kind of come around, and then something else, and we go, oh, that was good. Now it's cool again.
Yeah.
So it is funny how things circumvent.
Yeah.
Like you said with those things.
Yeah, knowledge kind of gets lost and rediscovered.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Man.
Makes things interesting.
Really
so what's the one piece of advice? So you've got somebody that's, I guess, facing the challenges that you have. Just say they're living a life they're not, you know, super thrilled about. They've got dreams. They'd rather be doing something else. They might be kicking themselves, going, fuck, like, you know, I'm not where I want to be. I guess what's that first bit of advice, and then maybe your top three. Like, what's those first couple of things you got to do?
Yeah, sure. I mean, in terms of the action plan, first of all, I'd like to propose a question, which I've devised over recent years, which I've learned from other people, which helped me define the path. But also, I've designed this question to help people really kind of at least go in the right direction with where they should be going in life, regardless of who they are, what they want to do.
Yeah.
And that set of questions, if you will, is a part of a bigger question. So, you know, it's like, what is the meaning of life? Right? The meaning of life, the best answer today is
42.
Yeah. Exactly. There you go. That's it. Done. But the best answer today is to enjoy it.
Yeah.
Literally, right? But, you know, what is it that we do? And ultimately, at the heart of it, it's purpose. Purpose is what gets us all get up in the morning, right? So it's like, there's a key word for everyone. What's your purpose, right? What gets you up in the morning? It can be paying your rent over your head. It can be literally providing for your kids. It can be something simple or very complex. Now, how do we find out the path that you could or should be going? Because it's not about owning a business or being an entrepreneur or being someone famous. It's about being happy, fulfilled, and again, having purpose, whatever that means. I think there's a bit of a societal pressure these days to, you know, be the brand or have a label or do something. It's like, man, you know, you can just be. I've met surfers who travel the world, bum around, and the fucking happiest people in the world, and I admire the shit out of them. They're the most interesting people I've ever met. Yeah. You know, and there's people in all walks of life who've done things. It doesn't need to come with a monetary bank account status or even fame.
They say
so
I
think I just
some of the happiest people in the world.
Literally.
They've got nothing.
No, exactly. It comes intrinsically. So I kind of want to just preface that. But the questions, or the question, is answered in a couple of parts. So first of all, I say to people, and this is, you need to marinate on this. First of all, imagine you've got everything that you desire right now in your life. I'm talking everything to the detail. Like, and it usually will be materialistic, right? It'll be clothes, it'll be cars, it'll be houses, locations. I'm talking relationships, I'm talking pets. Really live it, breathe it. The money, everything, you've got it all, but you need to really put yourself there. Yeah. Which can take a bit of time. And then from there, you've got to think about, what do your days look like still? Like, now you've got everything and you've done your travel, or you are doing your travel and you're buying the nice things or whatever, because a lot of the time it will be that for people, or the relationships that you may have won and lost. What is your days looking like? When are you waking up? What time? What bed are you in? Even down to the sheets. Who are you with? Have you got a dog there, an animal? Are you going for a coffee? Are you training? Are you writing? Are you getting up late? Are you getting up in the middle of the night, early hours of the morning? Get really granular with it. That will start to determine where you should be going and what you should be doing in your life. And the reason why is because when you do have everything you so desire, because happiness we put on the horizon. I'll be happy when, I'll be great when, I'll be jacked when. It's like
destination syndrome.
Yeah, you're never going to be big enough, you're never going to be rich enough, you're never going to be lean enough, good looking, and all this shit, right? So like, people need to stop putting happiness on the horizon right now and start figuring it out straight away. And health and relationships are the two contributing factors for that. So once you know what your days look like, you'll go, right, actually, I'm still going to train, or I'm still going to write my poetry, or I'm going to sit down and play my guitar, or I'm going to go for whatever it is. Like, that's the path you need to move in. And people go, well, how's that a job? And you go, well, what is it either A, you can get paid for within your day that you could be doing, or what is a career that facilitates that lifestyle? So it's, again, the question is starting with the end in mind. But if you ask someone that, they don't get the same perspective, so you need to unpack it. I've found, because it was for a series of podcasts that I kind of had that moment for me, and I was like, fuck, bang, like someone said something and it kind of clicked and I was ready to hear it.
Yeah.
So I've kind of formulated that question that way. I've almost like deconstructed it and reversed it, in my opinion. But I found when people marinate on that, you know, they can start to get some clarity. And then from there, it's about, you know, taking action, focusing on the controllables. Fuck the things you can't control, because you can't control them, so stop wasting your time and energy on them. You can't change the bloody weather, you can't change how tall you are and all this other shit. So focus on what you can control, and again, just focus on what can you do every single day, just 1 or 2 things, never more than 3, and just take action. And it's just 1 foot in front of the other, and it ain't magic, it ain't sexy, and you can't sell it. Right? And anyone who's achieved anything in life, there's no magic to it. They'll tell you the same thing in terms of, you know, it's just about taking action. There's no magic pill, and that's the problem. People are looking for the magic pill all the time. They're looking for the quick fix. Don't look for the quick fix. It's boring. If someone just gave you all the answers and all the money, you'd get bored, trust me. Look at all these stars who are born with a silver spoon in their ass. They're not the happiest people. They might look like it, but I tell you what, it's fucking boring after a while. You know, you're better to have some sort of adversity and struggle in your life, and have some character building moments, rather than just having, you know, there's a great fable of the prince, or a prince who became Buddha, because he was like a prince of a famous king, and he actually got sick of it and he started living on the streets. Except you need to check that, you're right.
No, yeah,
sorry, I thought you were technical. You know, when he started living as a on the as a beggar for years. The king couldn't find him, and then he dwindled out, and he was apparently Buddha. He became Buddha, and he found peace and serenity and taking it all away. And you just said before, they've got nothing and they're the happiest people. So why? Because you go through the journey. You know? So yeah, in summary, find your purpose by starting with the end in mind, to summarize, and then create an action plan and execute on it daily, even when you don't feel like it. And that may include what we've talked about on the podcast today, having levels of accountability, whether that's vision boards, whether that's telling people that you care about, whether that's writing notes for yourself, something that you can take action on daily. That'd be it.
Awesome. Well, I've definitely learned some stuff and got a new perspective. So yeah, thank you so much for coming on. And so people want to look you up. I mean, you mentioned you've got a podcast as well. So let everybody know where they can track you down.
For sure, man. For sure. And I'll have to get you on.
Yeah.
So people listen. I might even put this on my podcast if you're listening to it now, people, and then they can, because I think there's a lot of value in what we've talked about. But you know, it would be great to uncover your story. But for me, guys, if you want to find me, Fearless Training, put that into Google, anything there. Fearless Training United's the website. It's under my personal name at the minute. If you're going on Instagram, it's fearless_training_ or _Alex Connor. You put anything along those lines in, and maybe I've got a link tree that you can go into. That's the mothership, and you'll find everything from there: podcast, YouTube, training advice, you name it.
Awesome.
It's there, lots of free quality information for people to get onto. And if anyone's got any questions, I'll get back to every single one of them individually. So please reach out. Happy to help.
And if you're on the Goldie and need a trainer,
that's the one.
look him up.
Appreciate it, brother.
Alrighty.
Mate, thanks for the opportunity, mate.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
Thanks, man. Awesome.
Cool.
For those of you who are confused, frustrated, and sick and tired of not seeing the results that you want or deserve, make sure that you click the Apply for Coaching button in the description below and line up a completely free consultation with myself, where we can discover if it's a good fit as client and coach, and take your health and physique to the next level once and for all.